Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic. So this is going to be the name of the channel going forward. And I'm going to change it over a little bit slowly over the next couple weeks. I'm going to start off with this new intro, and then eventually the banner, and then the name itself will be changed over to Film and Page. So the first video I'm doing with this new intro is going to be Charles Bronson's 1974 movie, Death Wish. So this is a movie I saw a really long time ago. To the point where I couldn't really remember it, and then watched it again for the second time like a couple months ago. So there's a very long gap in between the two viewings of this movie. Now, I had seen the second Death Wish like a lot. That's the one I've seen the most, and the third one. And I liked the second one, but to me it was always just a very shallow, exploitive action movie, and then the third one was just ridiculous and off the wall to the point where it like broke my suspension of disbelief. So I went in with that kind of expectation with the first one. I thought it was going to be a lot like the second one, but I was actually really surprised. It is an action movie, but it's actually quite a bit deeper, and it has a lot deeper themes than what any of the other ones have. The other ones, as far as I'm concerned, they don't even have themes. They're just like just in-your-face action movies. So if you've never seen Death Wish, I'll give a quick rundown of the plot. And there might be some spoilers in this video as I'm talking about the movie, so spoiler warning if you haven't seen the movie, but it came out in 1974. So the plot is actually a pretty simple plot. So Charles Bronson plays a character named Paul Kersey. And Paul Kersey is an architectural designer in New York City. And at this point in time, there is a lot of crime in New York City. And so while he's not at home one day, his wife and daughter are followed back to their apartment by a gang of thugs that break in and commit like a really horrible act of violence on them. And his wife dies and his daughter is left in a coma. And so anyway, he is so shooken by this experience that he doesn't know how to cope with it. The only way he can cope with it is by taking the law into his own hands and going out night after night as a vigilante, knocking off criminals. So he's basically, he's the Punisher. I'm pretty sure this character had to be one of the inspirations for the Punisher. He turns into the Punisher at that point. And in a nutshell, that's the movie. That's the plot of the movie right there. But upon watching it, I kind of was thinking about the movie after I watched it, and I noticed it's quite a bit deeper of a film than the first one. It's quite a bit deeper of a film than the second one, I mean to say. Because this one has like some political themes in it. One is like obviously it's a commentary on the times, because at the time the movie came out, there was a lot of crime going on in that period of time. Lots of crime. And so there's a commentary on that. But also it has I think anyway, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but it has a pro-gun message. I think it's pro-gun, this movie. So in that sense, it's kind of a right-wing movie. I might be wrong, but that's my observation anyway. Now, the other thing about this movie is it has a message that I picked up on, but I don't know how many other people did pick up on this message. So the thing about this movie is the message I got out of it is when you have a political stance on a certain issue, what happens when when reality comes up and slaps you in the face and makes you question that certain political stance. So in this movie, the character of Paul Kersey is a liberal. And they go out of their way to make sure you know he is a liberal in this movie, because other characters call him a bleeding heart liberal. And he's anti-gun in this movie. So that's his stance on guns. He doesn't like guns, and he's anti-gun until this happens to him, until this horrible crime happens to his family. And then he goes out and he starts taking the law into his own hands. So in the movie, he goes down to one of the southern states, I'm not sure which one, and he meets up with basically this cowboy guy who's pro-gun, and Paul Kersey's going to do some work for him, help him design these condos and stuff he wants to build. So they kind of have a little bit of a debate on guns. And so as Paul Kersey leaves to go back to New York, this cowboy guy gives him a gun. He said, you know what, here, I'm going to give you this gun as a gift for coming down and helping me out and doing a good job and all that. So he gives him a gun. Then he goes back to New York, and he doesn't know what to do with the gun, but he ends up using the gun. Now, the reason why he's anti-gun, how he got that stance in the first place, is he tells the story he had a very bad thing happen to, bad situation he had a bad experience with guns in his youth. So he was always anti-gun ever since. But for a guy who's anti-gun, he is a really good shot. For a guy who's anti-gun, he's very good with guns. Because he used to be around guns a lot in his youth until that certain situation happened. And then he's been anti-gun ever since. But now this new situation's happened, and in the movie, he becomes a lot more pro-gun. Because he's going out as a vigilante and taking the law into his hands. So that's kind of the, I guess, the message I got out of this movie that I saw in it. Now, I might be wrong. And it's just something that I'm seeing in the movie. I don't know if it's something that was intentional or not by the people who made this movie. But I think this happens a lot in real life, where people have a certain political stance on something, and then, some kind of situation happens to them, and then they start to question their stance. Like, you see this a lot. You see this happen quite a bit. Like, it's happened to me in my life. There's certain things I had a certain stance on until I saw like a certain thing happen, or some kind of new reality that came up, and situation that kind of hit me in the face and made me question that stance. Like, one example I have is, I know a person who I knew for quite a while, and they were always very anti-union. They hated unions. That was their stance for like the longest time, as they were very anti-union. Until they had gotten a certain job. And that certain job, the way the politics went in that job, and just the way the whole management structure of that job, that made him change his mind. Because then after that, the person would always tell me, I was always anti-union my whole life until I started working here. And once I started working here, I realized if any place needs a union, this place needs to be unionized. So then he changed his stance on unions. And so that kind of stuff happens. I mean, this person went for years and years and years, always bashing unions, saying that, well, unions only support the lazy. That's what they used to say, until they got a job working for this certain place, and then they changed their tune, and then they became pro-union. And I've seen the opposite happen. I've seen people who were very pro-union have a very bad experience with the union, and then come out of that experience anti-union. So, and then same thing with people who are always pro-life. They get in a situation where all of a sudden now they have an unwanted baby, or they have a kid that was unplanned, and now and it came out of a really bad situation somehow. It wasn't a very ideal situation. So now they question that stance, and they start thinking, well, maybe I've always been pro-life. I've never thought about abortion before until this happened. So stuff like that happens all the time. And I think that's one of the things that is in this movie. So one of the other things, though, that I really liked about this film is I really like these older films, how New York looks. Like, these older films could really capture that grittiness that new films just can't do it. Like, when you look at how New York City looks, it looks like grimy, rundown, gritty. And it totally is the perfect setting for this type of movie. Now, there's been a lot of these types of movies, like revenge movies over the years, and I actually like these kind of films, these revenge films. And I've seen a lot of them. There's the one Jodie Foster was in called The Brave One, which is basically like Death Wish, except the gender is flipped. She's the one that goes around blowing away all these punks that, beat up her boyfriend and killed him and stuff like that in that movie. And there's been, I've seen Kevin Bacon did one a few years back, where his son gets killed, and then he does the same thing. Like, there's a lot of these movies, very, very popular. And I think the reason why they're very popular is because you hear about this stuff on TV, these home invasions or these kinds of shootings. And then, it always makes you feel really helpless. What would you do in that situation? So this is kind of like a way we can, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but it's kind of like a way we can put ourselves in that character of what we, fantasizing about, like revenge fantasy, I guess. Getting back at those who want to do harm on you and stuff like that, or harm your family. And I think that, and it's a very relatable thing. It's not like a horror movie where someone's getting killed by some kind of spirit or ghost or monster or something like that. I think the reason why these movies really hit a certain core into people is because these things do happen. These aren't any kind of, they're just criminals or punks or whatever you might have. So these kind of things can really happen with home invasions and stuff like that. So yeah, I actually really like this first Death Wish. And if you haven't seen any of the Death Wish movies, I would watch this one, because it's a very good action movie. And then the second one's not too bad. But now the only thing is this movie has stuff in it that you would never see in a modern film now anyway. Not anything that would go to the theaters. Because the attack scene in the, like a lot of these older movies, like when the mother and the daughter get assaulted and attacked, it's pretty hard to watch. It's pretty brutal. I mean, these older movies, man, they really didn't hold any punches back at all. If you did a scene like that in a modern movie now, I think people would really freak out. But yeah, just keep ahead. And there's a scene like that in the second one too. That's pretty brutal. So if you ever decide to watch these movies, keep that in mind, that these scenes are in there. But as far as an action movie goes, I think it's a good movie, and it's definitely worth a watch. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.